Got it. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Hello. It's that time of the week. It seems to come around so quickly, doesn't it? Wednesday, 3:30 CET time. I'm Dawn Campbell, your host for this 30-minute live chat. It's called Ask Me Anything About Accreditation, and of course you can, but we often go off-piste. So I'm joined today by the lovely Jenny Butter, who is an accredited master coach, possibly about to embark on her fellowship of the IAPC&M. No pressure there, Jenny. She's also the host of our acclaimed podcast, Both Sides of the Coin, which is quite a unique podcast. And she's based in the UK as a career coach. So whether you're tuning into this because you know you can ask us anything about accreditation, whether it's because you are a coach and or a mentor and you thought, this whole accreditation business has passed us by. It's an unregulated market. Why do you even need to get accredited? Well, hopefully you're starting to hear more about it because clients are doing their due diligence and asking you the question, are you insured? Are you accredited? Who did you train with, etc. So it's a very important means of helping you stand out in what has become a very noisy digital space. Maybe you're a potential client. As I keep saying, our New Year's resolutions are long forgotten, but whether you've got a personal or a professional goal that you would like to be coached and or mentored on, then somebody like Jenny, particularly if it's in the field of careers, is ideally placed to answer your questions. And then I suppose the other audience, Jenny, is training providers. So it could be universities, and indeed corporate in-house programs as well. They might be thinking, well, how is accreditation going to help us attract more international students, improve our league tables, or as a corporate, improve our coaching and mentoring culture and job satisfaction, productivity, etc. So accreditation does all of that and more. And we'll take your questions via Gillian, my VA, who is looking at all the sites. So we're going live on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. So let's get started. Nice transpersonal question for you, Jenny. I know you're normally on the other side of the desk and probably, like most people on the other side of the desk, hate being interviewed. Just think of it as a chat. I'd like to know, as we all would, what fills your heart with joy outside of work?
I love going for a walk in the countryside. So I live in the middle of the South Downs, surrounded by hills, nature. Every day we see birds of prey. And actually, where I live in this village, probably about 1 minute walk down the road, we have very rare birds called turtle doves. The partridge in a pear tree song. Well, they're really rare now, and they nest where I live. And I saw one the other day, and that filled my heart with joy. I've also seen, what's that creature called? They used to make fur coats out of them, and they had minks. So basically, where I live, there used to be a mink farm years and years ago, and somebody broke in, animal rights activists, and let them go. And so they're in the wild now. So I saw a mink crossing the road the other day. We have everything. It's beautiful. Seen a snake, a grass snake. So I just love to go walking. And at the moment, the woods are absolutely filled with the most beautiful bluebells. Stunning part of the world, the South Downs.
Oh, it sounds idyllic. What a wonderful place to nurture yourself. Really feed your soul.
It does feed my soul. And we're also 10 minutes away from the sea. We chose this part of the world. Hadn't known Sussex existed, actually. My husband was stuck into the 2-hour commute each way to London and back. And we had a growing family, boy and girl in a 2-bedroomed house. And was just looking where to go. We'd sold our house and we had 1 day to find somewhere due to his leave. Never been to Sussex, but saw our bungalow on Rightmove. And it was because we were on a tight budget, but it was a doer-upper. So I thought, let's go look at that. Offered there and then, and moved to Sussex. Yeah,
and never look back by the sounds of it.
Absolutely.
And are the children grown up now, or are they still in school?
Oh, I'm in GCSE season. So my daughter, so she starts the GCSEs this week, and my son is in lower 6th.
Okay.
But they
Wow.
both have career paths set out. I'm the mother, I'm a career coach. So my daughter is going to go on to do art and design, a BTEC in art and design, and she wants to be a character concept artist
Okay.
for Pixar or in animation. And my son is interested in being a diplomat or working for the Foreign Service.
Okay, interesting. Well, I mean, how lucky are they to not only have you as a role model, as a coach, somebody who's great at having conversations, but also career orientated, rather than just relying on the more traditional roles that the career coaches perhaps, certainly when I was at school, and things will have changed a huge amount since then. But, it was, if you were a girl, it was this. If it was a boy, you were doing this. And the choice was very limited. Well, you were able to open that choice up to them and, remind them what they're really good at so that they could think outside the box, as they both clearly are.
It's so true. And in my work as a career coach, I've met thousands of people from so many different professions, and it means my network is quite wide. And so I had a couple of clients whose partners were character concept artists, and they introduced them to my daughter, and they've reviewed her portfolio, given her feedback. They did that when she was 14 years old. But how kind are people? And then I met somebody the other day who was the wife of, in fact, it was the lady I interviewed for my last podcast that was just released a couple of days ago on coaching expat spouses. She is the wife of a diplomat, and her husband very kindly just spoke to my son about what it's like to be a diplomat, so he can decide, actually, is this something he's interested in? So that's what's great about coaching. You meet so many people from so many different walks of life, and you can just have that little positive impact in their lives.
Yeah, and they get first-hand experience as to what it's really like. I was just thinking, well, Julie, the host of the master classes, she was a diplomat's wife for many years, traveled to some fabulous countries. So it might even be worth having a conversation with her and potentially her ex-husband. I've no idea what their relationship is, but so she could give the other side of it, what it's like to drag a wife around. It's not always the wife, but in her case, she was the wife, and she had to carve out a speaking career in all the different locations. And because she developed those skills, she became a translator. So it's, she's got 5 languages and has created a wonderful career for herself as well. So yeah, could be interesting for him. Okay, well, it never fails to surprise me how many coaches cite walking in nature as their number one way of decompressing, de-stressing, and nurturing themselves in between the coaching conversations. So yeah, you're in good company.
That's nice to know.
So from the coaching point of view, as a career coach, Jenny, which age gap do you tend to coach, and is there a preference?
So yes, I'm an adult career coach. So that's everything from recent graduates to people approaching retirement. So just this week, I coached somebody that's coming to the end of the degree and wanted to know how to market themselves in their CV, where to go next. I've got quite a few midlife career changes at the moment. They want to do something completely different. People have been made redundant, so want help to land that new job or find a right fit job. People that want to get back into the workplace. So currently working with a lady who's been out of the workplace for a couple of decades, wanted to get back into the workplace. And then people who are approaching the end of their careers and want to do something different, might want to give something back, might want to go down to part-time and want to explore what that looks like for them. Every profession under the sun, and up to senior director level.
Okay, that is really broad.
Yeah, and across the globe as well. A lot of people across the globe.
Oh, really? Okay. And what about situations like burnout or going for a promotion? I presume they're included in your career development coaching?
Yeah, so for me, it's all about finding a right fit job. So I think it's important to assess, or when it comes to career coaching, all areas of your life, what does work-life balance look like for you? Do you want to leave a legacy? What type of culture is right for you? And are you doing a job that fits your strengths? I'm a great believer in the Gallup Clifton Strengths Finder. People that use their strengths every day are 6 times happier at work and have a 3 times better quality of life. And so it's assessing all of that and then putting that against potential job roles, potential companies, and coaching them to find a right fit job, and then work with them to position themselves in the right direction so they can then be attractive to those companies by what they bring impact-wise, results, metrics, and achievements, but also how they communicate culture fit as well. I think it's really important to gain that self-awareness and to know actually what you want, what you don't want. I would say what works, what doesn't work, what's missing and what needs to change. There are 4 things I think that you need to look at. And so burnout can often be a part of that.
Yeah, yeah. And what about outplacement? So companies who are making people redundant, which is obviously happening increasingly. Does that work across your path?
Yeah, so I'm an outplacement consultant for 2 different coaching companies. So
Okay.
for City CV, which is an award-winning CV and outplace company, and also for Impact Group. So a lot of the Impact Group work is actually people moving into the UK, so expat spouses. We talked a bit about that before. So when companies move their spouses, their staff into the UK, I coach the spouse on settling and getting a job, but they also do have outplacement clients as well. So I coach people through them that have been made redundant. And once again, every age and lots of different professions and seniority levels.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, the way you've described it, it's so broad. You
Yeah.
could imagine no 2 days are the same because it's multi-locational, cross-cultural, and it's every spectrum of the job. So you've decided not to niche in a particular area and keep it really broad.
But then you see, I have niched in the sense that I'm a career and life coach. So there are, for example, I do when I coach people, so I also coach in landing a job's like 30, 60, 90 days. Or I might have people that come in for 6 monthly checks and they do performance, we talk about performance and how you're getting on and that type of thing. But I'm certainly not a leadership coach, so I don't coach leaders. So it is niched within the career field. I speak to lots of different coaches that do other things, anxiety, that's not something I really cover. Grief, it's not something I cover. So yeah, it is career and life coaching, I'd say, is my niche. And I do turn clients away if I feel we're not a good fit, if they're looking for something else. I'm a very action-orientated coach. So I like people that I work well with people that want to move forward, want to make the changes. I know there's coaches that spend a lot of sessions just doing lots of exploratory work. I think there's a place for that. And sometimes a lady coach yesterday, she just wanted somebody to listen to her and to be affirmed. And that's absolutely the right thing for her at this point. But I think the way I like to do is I like to take people from present to the future. And so if there isn't that action there, well, then I might think, okay, who else might this person need instead of me? Or is coaching the right thing for you in this point of your life? Or maybe I'm not the right coach for you.
You've raised a really interesting point, Jenny, that's not come up before. Because, I mean, I don't do a great deal of coaching anymore. I simply don't have the time working at the IAPC&M. I'm meeting coaches all the time, so I'm doing a lot of mentoring. But when I was coaching, my relationships with the coachee was relatively short. It was very action orientated, very results orientated, by definition, quite fast. And then I've got other coaches that tell me, oh, they've had the same clients for 6 to 12 months on a program. And I just didn't do that sort of work. You're the first person who's, said that you're very action orientated as well.
Yeah, I mean, some of my consultancy clients, they are longer and they do have longer programs because that's what has been supplied for them by the company. And there is a place for that, but you've got to be very clear in your action plan and what needs to be covered to make sure that you're covering it and you are moving forward, rather than it being open-ended. Because I think then sometimes there can be a sense of how helpful is this to me? People that are transitioning, some people need longer to process, to come to terms, to research, especially if you're moving into the UK. Well, then there'll be different parts of their coaching. So there'll be pre-move, just moved, settling, and then the job search. So that might take, 9 months or something like that. And so that would warrant a longer program. You couldn't do that in a quick month burst. It just doesn't really work. I do deliver that sometimes, but it's not as effective, I think, as a longer journey. I mean, there have been people that I do see maybe over 3-4 months, and then they have 6-month check-ins, for example, just to, reassess, see where they're at. And I've got a few clients I've worked with over a few years for that, but I would only see them a couple of times a year, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah, I would concur with that. I used to call them MOTs. So, I would help them prepare for a promotion, and then in 2 years' time, they'd come back and say, I'm ready for the next stage, or they want to improve their presentation skills or something like that. So, regular clients, but not week in, week out, like therapy for a whole year sort of thing. It was short bursts. Interesting. And what about universities? How much work are you doing with universities? Because this is a busy time for them, isn't it, with all the graduates?
Yeah, I don't do any work with universities, actually. But interestingly, I'm currently doing a course on AI for career practitioners, just because I wanted to keep up to date, not be left behind. And as part of that, I have met quite a few career coaches who are part of universities. And there's 3 of them or 2 of them that have got 4,000 students. So that's pretty much 2,000 students each. So I think it's probably, from my understanding, it's more career guidance, providing information, tools and resources, as it is career coaching. And that's why sometimes I work with people once they've graduated or before they graduate, to help them understand actually what they have done, how that can then be brought out in a CV. Or I was coaching somebody the other day on how to get through the graduate recruitment interviews, like the day assessment centres, to help him land the position.
Yeah. Okay. Because I remember when I was in HR, and it would have been 20, 30, probably 30 years ago, I used to do the rounds of the London universities on there doing open days. So you'd have a stand and you talk to them about careers. And I would have thought now that that's a role that coaches take over, rather than it being reliant on HR. Although it is a bit of a feeding frenzy, because, the companies want all the best grads. But I would have thought there was an opportunity for coaches there as well. So interesting. Okay. So just let me check with Gillian if we have any questions. Okay, nothing in yet. So tell us a little bit more, because I introduced you and I said that you are the host of Both Sides of the Coin. How did that come about, Jenny? And what could people expect when they tune into that, please?
The reason why I started the podcast was I used to work in radio, and I had a career change myself, but I missed radio. And when it comes to CPD, I think it's so important to learn, but I get bored through in-depth learning through, I'm not a TikTok generation, but I like quick learning I can apply. And I think if you want to go on a course, you can go on an in-depth course, or you can listen more to an hours-long webinar. But I wanted to create quick CPD that people could get within about 20, 25, 30 minutes, so they could apply immediately. And that's why I always insist on interviewing a client as well. So I interview a coach, and then I interview one of their clients, so we as coaches can learn from clients about what it's like to be coached, what they like, what they don't like. We can then apply that into our practice. And it's interesting, I've done maybe 43 of them now, coaches across the globe, different niches, different topics. And actually, what I personally find most interesting is hearing from the clients. And it tends to be what they say that I remember, because I think, well, if that's what's important to you, that has to be important to me as a coach. And I think one of the themes that keeps coming through and through and through is the deep listening that we as coaches have to do, so we get it, so we don't miss the point. And yes, I am an action-orientated coach, but I can't move people forward unless we've grasped it, unless I've understood. And then I can ask the powerful question to give them the epiphany, or whatever it is that they need. But I think listening is everything.
It's interesting you say that, because just last week's guest, Anish, Dr. Anish in India, we were talking about what does it mean to be a coach. And he was saying before anybody can write, I am a coach, they must have developed their listening skills. That is the number one thing as far as he's concerned. He gave some great tips as well at the end, but listening for him was the fundamental characteristics of a great coach. So he was basically saying, you know, in order to go out there and call yourself a coach or write down, I am a coach, you've got to have mastered listening. And it was probably the most silent I've ever been in a masterclass because he talks in a very measured way, and you're waiting to hear if he's finished, because people need time to think. Whereas a lot of coaches hear a pause, or they're looking at the mouth waiting for the words to stop so they can jump in with their next brilliant question, or supposedly. And it's just not like that, because if you listen, your next question naturally forms from what they've just said. So it's nice to hear you agree that listening is fundamental to that. And I guess you would, having been in radio.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think the thing is as well, it's important to be happy to sit in the silence. And sometimes to be able to say, just give me a minute to think, because I need to process what I've heard, what I've seen, the body language. So then I can think, okay, which is an appropriate way to, you know, to take this, or what to ask. And I guess that just comes with years of experience of being a coach, being comfortable to say, let me think, give me a minute, and pause myself rather than thinking I've got to rush in to the next thing to fill that gap.
I think we need to repeat that, Jenny, because that is very, very important for all the new and inexperienced practitioners who are listening to these calls, because that's why they listen to these calls, your podcast, the masterclasses, because they're developing themselves. I've never heard anybody say that before. So perhaps we can just say it again about the importance of them taking a break into silence.
I think, yeah, just to repeat the point, to be able to get the most out of a coaching session, I might have seen something, I might have heard something, or myself, I might think, okay, where do I take this so it's most effective? And sometimes I just have to have the confidence to say, give me a minute just to think, so I can internally process, so I can take it in the right direction. But I think that's something that comes with confidence and practice as a coach. It's not something I used to do, but it's something I now do quite a lot, because I've noticed the importance of it and the power of it. Because if you're in that coaching relationship, there is a connection, there is a powerful moment, or a powerful connection. And it's right that you honor that. It's right that you honor that space and time. Yeah, to collect yourself within it and to then know where to go with it.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that's got to be so reassuring for the younger generation of coaches to say, or to hear, it's okay to ask for a moment for themselves to check their understanding. It's not about jumping in with the next brilliant question. They need to clarify, they need to process, they need to understand. It's one of the reasons also when we talk about understanding that I recommend coaches read Atlas of the Heart, because Brené Brown's work on emotions is just so important, that we can show that we're vulnerable, and it takes a great deal of honesty and courage to be vulnerable and say, I need to clarify with you, what do you mean by your feeling depressed? Because they might actually, once you explore it, say, well, actually, I'm just a bit blue and cheesed off at the moment, versus somebody is genuinely clinically depressed and needs, you know, to expand their dream network beyond coaching to other modalities. But we need to listen, and we need to understand the language our clients are using, and then clarify that we're actually using the same language, the same terminology. So it's lovely that you raised that point. So thank you for that, Jenny. That is a real gem. Oh, we have a question. How did it becoming accredited help you as a career coach, if indeed it did?
I think, and I know I need to say this because I'm a part of the IAPC&M, but it's true. I think there are so many coaches out there that aren't accredited. I have had people come to me and say, I've chosen you because you are accredited. The reason why I went for the IAPC&M is because when I first started out as a coach, it seemed such a big leap with other coaching providers to be able to get to a master, whereas the IAPC&M has senior in between, which is 750 hours. And that was always my goal. I thought, I can reach that, I can make that. So that to me was my own professional goal. But yeah, I mean, I have had quite a few people say, I'm going for you because you're accredited. And so I think it's helped my confidence because we have to do 30 hours CPD a year. I do that. It keeps me up to date. It's a really good thing for my CV. And also clients do trust me because of that accreditation as well. So I think it's really important. And then should the coaching industry ever become regulated, which it probably will do in the future, I can prove through my coaching hours log, through my CPD log, that actually I have a right to be accredited and registered.
Yeah,
I think the other thing is, if you're paying, and actually I heard this in one of my podcasts as well, and I so reiterate the points. If somebody is paying you for that space, almost to get into your brain, it's so important that that person is trusted and trained well, because it's so important when you're in that mental coaching brain space that they can trust where you're going and what you're saying and what you're doing, and the questions you're asking, that it's a safe space. And I think that that only comes with proper training. In the way that I wouldn't pay somebody to fix my boiler that hadn't had that proper training, I honestly think that in that coaching space where it is people's lives, their emotions, it's got to be safe.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I often find myself saying when people are asking me, because obviously my role is business development, so I meet people who maybe have taken a weekend diploma course and are now calling themselves a coach. I don't have an issue with the quality of the training that they've received or the information. What I do take issue with is that you haven't served your apprenticeship. You haven't had the opportunity through maybe 3, 6, 9, 12 months worth of study buddies, mentoring, practicing with all the different complex and sophisticated client needs that they're now presenting, especially since COVID, because people aren't usually coming just because they want to lose weight or just because they want to change a career. There's usually a big mental type issue around what they want to do. And it's not just that they want to lose weight or they want to change their career. That's the presenting issue, but what is past that? So when you've lost weight, what are you going to be? What's on hold until you've lost the weight? And so your cookie cutter top 50 coaching questions are just not good enough these days. Coaching has evolved to such a point that we understand the mind-body connection, the power of it. It's a very different industry to what it was 20 years ago when I trained.
Yeah, I agree. I went to some event, I can't remember what it was, and there was somebody that had been on one of those weekend courses that was then training other people in the room to how to be coaches. And he just kept going through the, oh, mine's gone blank. What's that standard model that you use? Or goal, is it goal or one of them?
Goal.
Yeah, anyway, he just kept going through that. And the person, like, it's like as a trial coaching thing in the front saying, you know, I can help this woman. And she wasn't moving forward. And I just thought, but you're just asking the same questions over and over again, believing that she's got the answers within you. But that model isn't helping her in this moment, in this time. We need to ask more probing questions. And that's where I think the CPD takes you past the initial coaching course. Because if she had have paid for that, she would have wasted her money because she wasn't able to move forward at the end of it and make it was about helping her make a decision, but she hadn't figured out what the right decision was because all he knew was the coaching model that he'd learned at that weekend training course.
And that's a difference, Jenny, isn't it, between somebody who is, what could I say, spoon-fed almost this, you know, trained, this is the model, these are the coaching questions. But with experience, with supervision, with coaching, with mentoring, with walking the walk and talking the talk and investing in yourself, you start to realize that they are just tools. So if you're a plumber, they're just part of the tools in your white van. You need to have the confidence and the expertise to pull out the right tool at the right time. And it may well be in a coaching session, you only need 2 tools. Whereas in another coaching session, you may use 10 of them. Definitely, I'm of a philosophy, less is more. Less questions, but better quality, a lot more listening and more silence, and let the client do the work. So T-Grow or Grow or Oscar or whichever module you're using is just a structure. But of course, we're working to the client's agenda. So there's no point in you sticking to T-Grow if you've left your client back there. But you're going to finish T-Grow come hell or high water. Doesn't work.
Yeah, it was the Grow model. Yeah, you've reminded me. Yeah, the Grow model.
Yeah. Well, it's very popular for a reason. It's a very, very good module. But the more experience you become, the less reliant on it, and the more you just realize it is just a structure.
Yeah.
I'm very conscious of the time, Jenny. We've come to the end of our 30 minutes. It always flies by. We've answered that second part of the question about comparing your career coaching career before you had your accreditation to now. And I think you've covered that. So thank you for answering that question. So apart from being on the IAPC&M directory, where else can people find you, Jenny? And what's coming up for you next, if there's anything in particular you'd like to share or promote?
So my personal website is epiphanylifecoaching.com. It's called Epiphany Career and Life Coaching, but that was far too long a URL. I'm also on the life coaching directory, which for new coaches, I have had clients from that. I used to get lots of clients from that. Now there seems to be so many coaches in the life coaching directory. I get a lot, far fewer than I ever used to have. And what was the final question, Dawn? What's coming up for me?
What, if anything, would you like to promote?
Oh, nothing.
Well, you're having
just
a
my
break,
website, epiphanylifecoaching.com. And obviously the Both Sides of a Coin podcast, which can be found on Audible, Spotify, iTunes, Podbean, all main podcast providers.
Great. Okay. And you're taking a summer break, so you'll be back with us in when? September, October time?
No, so I'm taking a podcast break from September to through the autumn. My husband, he works full time, but he's also been training for the past 6-7 years to be a vicar, doing that part time. Finally finishes his security in July, and as a family, we're just exhausted. So we'll both still be working full time, but we're taking a break from all extracurricular activities just to breathe. And I'm teasing him. I have a huge list of house jobs that I want him to do in that time. So it's a catch up with life and rest period.
Oh, wow. That sounds wonderful. Well, thank you very much for your time. It's been lovely to meet you and hear about career coaching, that really wide breadth of scenarios that you're able to support with. So anybody who's listening to this over a cup of tea or coffee and thinking, I could do with a bit of support, either with a promotion or with a career change, or maybe you're planning to retire and do some voluntary work or set up your own business, then clearly Jenny is the person to speak to. And if you have any questions that pop into your head after this call, obviously you can drop them in the chat box of this recording, and Gillian will make sure that Jenny gets them. So thank you very much, Jenny. It's been a pleasure as always.
My pleasure. Thank you, Dawn.
I'll see everybody again next week.